Hey, how's it going, everyone? Welcome to Meet the Entrepreneur number 28. This is Arteen Zahiri. I'm your host. Today I'm speaking with Bahareh Banisadr. Bahareh is the founder of Be Bahar, a startup that's providing products that make fashion care easy and accessible for everyone. She's also an enterprise account executive at Object Edge, which is a digital transformation consultancy. And she's also the niece of the first president of Iran. So as you can expect, based on her amazing background, this is a very interesting conversation. We cover a diverse set of different areas. You won't want to miss out. So let's go ahead and jump right in. You have, of course, your own startup. You started your career in retail, and now you also have a role at Object Edge promoting digital transformation initiatives. Why don't you just, in your words, give our audience like a quick background of yourself?
Career-wise, so I did start my career in retail. I had roles in buying for Macy's, Florida. We bought for 52 stores in Puerto Rico and all of Florida stores. I then advanced into luxury retail. So I worked for Prada, Gucci, Miu Miu, opened up some retail stores. First ever retail store in Miami for Miu Miu Bell Harbor, opened a couple of outlets in Florida. So really was part of the Prada team in expanding their retail presence within Florida. I then relocated to New York and was involved with Gucci in their flagship in Fifth Avenue. And after about 10 years of really having a number of different roles within retail, across from big chain stores like Macy's down to luxury and more niche clientele, I realized that there was sort of a glass ceiling, and this was not necessarily the path that would get me to what my ultimate life purpose and goals was. At that point, I decided to go back to school after 10 years of not being in school, and to get my MBA in Babson with the ultimate goal of wanting to start my own business. I come from a family of entrepreneurs, and it's always what I had in the back of my mind as the end goal. But there is always that I'm not ready, I don't know enough, let me just do this, let me get that job, let me learn this other skill, let me get this degree, and it's always just not the right time yet. So I decided perhaps sort of getting off of the track that I was on and reshifting my life and going to school would give me that launch pad that I needed to feel ready. And Babson is the perfect school for that, given, it's the #1 school in entrepreneurship, and that's really what their focus is. While in school at Babson, I did the 1-year MBA program in Boston. And I realized something that really stuck with me while I was there is that as an individual, if you're someone who's highly skilled in two completely separate skill sets and experiences, then you become very unique in being able to deliver something, whether it's creating a product or a company or being invested in. So I knew I had the retail background, but again, I wanted to get into technology, understanding, even I started to see it in retail before leaving. Technology is really our future. I don't care what you want to do. If you want to sell shoes or develop the next, social media dating site, you need to have a basic understanding or more advanced understanding of technology. But there's nothing that you get in that technology will not touch in our lifetime, and definitely in the future. Like, even if you have a pizza shop, you need to understand some element of digital and technology. So I decided post college to get a job within tech just to understand it. And my initial goal was to let's have it be a 12-month thing, also make some good money so I'd be able to invest in having my own startup. 4 years later, I do work for Object Edge. I have a daytime job. I'm an executive, an account executive at this point, and we do digital transformation for a number of different companies. Primarily, we focus on B2B, but we do a lot of retail companies as well. So there, I've been able to utilize my history and that sort of crossover of what I've known and what I can then deliver within technology. Simultaneously, I started to work on and finally launched my own business this past November. And thus far, I've been juggling them both. It's not easy. do daytime, and then on my nights and weekends, I'm able to work on my own company. It's allowed me the funds to bootstrap and not have to look for any outside investments. But then there's also, I'm not able to dedicate as much time or grow as rapidly as I would want had I had the luxury of giving of my time and myself fully to just one instead of spreading myself across both. So I'll stop there and let you dig into any of those parts of my life you'd like to.
Great background, great story. Congratulations on launching your own business. That's a huge first step. Why don't you talk to us about that? Be Bahar, right? I know you have two products, Be Unfuzzed, Be Mended. Tell us about why this was what you wanted to launch. What made you passionate about taking this product and bringing it to market?
Yeah. Well, when I started this, I knew I wanted to pull on my background both in retail and now technology. So I knew I definitely wanted to do a digital first company. Then looking at it from a side of retail, right? The first thought everyone is, okay, let me do another clothing brand or anything of that sort, where I didn't see, I had no passion and no interest in that. I felt that I would just be jumping into a pool of what's already a saturated market of different brands and such. What I did start to take notice of is, of course, there's a sustainability issue, right? So, and we always look at sustainability from something that needs to be resolved by the manufacturers or by the distributors or by the makers of the brand. We never really look at something that sustainability as something that consumers can affect and touch, right? So I started to think, how can I create something that would allow the consumer to take sustainability into their own hands? And that doesn't mean consume more, consume differently, buy from this brand or that brand. That means what I already have, what I'm sitting at home with, what can I do to help this problem? That was one angle of it. And the other angle of it was, I was thinking from the perspective of a company, a retail company. What are the problems and challenges they face, and how can I help to fix that, right? So how it initially started was I was really looking to find a solution for returns, right? So one of the biggest reasons for online returns when it comes to clothing and retail is fit. It's slight fit. So I started to kind of develop a product to try to have the consumer be able to do easy and simple fixes at home for fit. So an example use case would be, if the waist of something is a little bit too big, or if it's cut a little low, what easy thing can I do at home? Cost me less than $20, but I can fix this instead of having to return it and go through that whole process. That's where it started, but I ended up pivoting and changing and understanding consumer behavior and why that's, because when you start to get into altering fit, then you have to have at least a basic understanding of pattern making and seamstress, and that's not something that most people at everyday consumer is comfortable with. So I started to shift it to, okay, if returns is not where we can fix the problem, how about approaching the problem from a place of sustainability, from being able to get more utilization out of the clothes you already have? And then as I started to look up some statistics and facts, it was really shocking to me. Like, Artin, I'll tell you some statistics. 3 out of 5 items that are purchased from any clothing items that are purchased from any consumer are thrown away within 1 year. The volume of clothing that Americans throw away each year has doubled in the past 20 years, from 7 million to 14 million. So people just continue to throw away clothes because there's fast fashion, because, okay, I don't like it. It got old, it ripped, it got dirty, it's wrinkly. It doesn't give me the same, it's a diminishing returns on the clothes and the satisfaction they give you. So they started to sort of just toss them. So where can we come in at that juncture to fix the problem? And that's really what started Be Bahar. So as you mentioned, we do have 2 products. One, which is a needle that helps to fix everyday wear and tear, so small rips, holes, anything like that that you have on your clothes, without having to know how to sew, without having to know how to knit, without having to have any other products than just what comes in this package. It's a simple two-step process. I'm actually going through the process of getting the patent on it. And so I worked to develop that. And the second product we have is a 2-in-1 electronic pill shaver and a lint roller. So again, our focus on all of our products is to make really smart, easy, and incrementally innovative products to fight off everyday wear and tear so that our consumers can keep their items longer and ultimately help the sustainability problem within fashion and retail.
That's really cool. It's a huge problem. I can't believe when you're citing those statistics that consumers throw away so much clothes. Like you think at least, give it away, hand-me-downs, Goodwill, something. Because if it's all going to, just landfill, that's a huge sustainability issue. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, and I think the products that you're talking about, things that can, make those quick fixes, that's great to keep things lasting longer. And also for families. I mean, I remember growing up, we would share clothes between cousins or siblings. Even today, like my dad gives me his old clothes, and then somehow I give him my clothes now. It's like hand me up. So, and of course, nothing is ever like perfect fit. Sometimes there may be some things you need to fix. So instead of throwing it away, this just lets you continue to repurpose the clothes. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. And also, you mentioned just culturally the way we're evolving. If you remember, I'm sure your mother, your grandmother, or someone within your family, in your immediate family, had the skills to sew, knit, fix items of clothing. That's becoming a lost art as our generation evolves. Understandably, especially women who are the ones who traditionally took on those roles are now starting to take on more professional roles. But we can't just sort of put it aside. Like we need to become innovative within that sector of human behavior of how do we still care for our clothes without tossing them. So I want to innovate this in a way that it can be easy to use without requiring the grandma who knew how to sew, without requiring the mom who has the whole sewing kit and box and all of her tips and tricks and things in her bag of here, mom, fix this for me. We are now becoming the next generation, and we are now going to have children. And so everything else has evolved. Why not this space?
Yeah, absolutely. You just unlocked a memory I had of like my grandma with the Danish cookie jar that you open it, but it's like
Yep.
all her sewing stuff. Um,
Yep.
yeah, there's definitely a lost art. No one's really doing that. You don't really see that as much today. And I like how you're bringing in, when you're going through your story, it's like this, you have your retail experience, and then you also have these, you understand that technology is touching every single industry now, no matter how big or small or how old school. And you're kind of putting that together. But I like to ask our guests, usually like when they're in the VC space, like about trends that they see. Although with you, this is your day job, is you consult companies with digital transformation, IT solutions. Of course, there's all these conversation now, AI, chat, GPT. I'm sure you're very involved with that. What are the biggest trends for, 2023 and beyond, um, in technology for large businesses that you work with?
So outside of Be Bahar and my personal startup, just trends that I'm seeing within the digital space, particularly with larger enterprise corporations, which is what we work with, and then more particularly with B2B. First, I want to sort of set the ground of understanding of when it comes to B2B, they're always sort of one generation behind in adoption. Um, they're not the first to jump into something like a chat GPT, right? So it's definitely on the radar, but not an immediate trend. What are some immediate trends within B2B and enterprise is subscription, CPQ, which is configurable price goods. So, thinking going in, a car is a simple example, but wanting to have a price spit out when I pick out all the different components of a vehicle online, that takes some really architecturally advanced back end to be able to do that for an enterprise level company, right? Like custom end to end and give me a price within 30 seconds, right? So a lot of these B2B companies are catching up and starting to install, and how do we integrate that into our systems? And then secondly, a subscription, right? So that's definitely something that in the B2C space has been, it's old news, right? But in B2B, it's what they're now getting on board with. And then again, there's complexities that come into play when you're talking about the purchasing patterns of a B2B corporation as opposed to B2C. When you're a subscriber for like dogs box, what is this? The something dog, the
Yeah, the
B2C
dog
company.
subscription box, and it comes with
Yeah,
like toys and
right.
stuff each month.
Right. So that's one simple thing. But now thinking B2B as a restaurant who has a particular napkins and forks and so on and so forth, and it changes monthly. And what is the cadence in which you get it? It's not something you're going to get every month because you might not run through your entire cycle of products in that month. If it's a busy month, if it's a slow month. So again, complexities that come into that. So the trends in B2B is the trends that B2C adopted, I would say, 2 to 3 years ago, but now needing to be advanced into usability in B2B. And that's what we're seeing. So I would say subscription and CPQ is really what the focus is on that space now.
Got it. That's very interesting. Thanks for sharing that with your insights. But
Yeah.
I'm going to switch gears a little bit, take the conversation to a different topic. We were talking before the podcast, the two of us share Iranian heritage. Of course, you were actually born in Iran. I was the child of parents that immigrated from Iran to the United States. And, you are also obviously um, the niece, right, of the first president of Iran, Bahareh Banisadr. You've been on cable news networks to talk and amplify the voice of the current movement in Iran. So could you share what's happening in Iran today? Why is it important, and why should our viewers, be interested in this?
Yeah. Well, where to start? That's opening up a box right there. That's unpacking a lot. There's these protests that have broken out more recently, which I'm sure a lot of people have heard about, based on uh, a lady who was unfortunately and prematurely killed off because of her not having properly covered her hair and worn the mandatory hijab in Iran. And that really was the spark that set fire to these protests and the youth just being fed up with what's happening in Iran. And it's primarily being led by the women's rights, but it really goes much deeper than that. It's socioeconomic. It's just uh, dictatorships there, and it's a whole mountain of issues that this is just sitting at the top of. What it's so sad because when I look at the youth there, there's so much potential. I mean, just the brain trust that Iran has in terms of pure intelligence that really gets the only way for them to be able to take full advantage of or do anything with their lives is to leave the country, right? Imagine the country created a world where they could stay and use their abilities to grow the country that they're in, what our country, what Iran could be. But what the government there has created currently is if you have anything to offer, the only way you can offer it is to get out of there. And that's ultimately where I see the most loss for not just our people, but our country, to dilute out all of our natural resources, which I think our natural resources are beyond just oil, is actually the people. And the youth really, unfortunately, is the only people who can do anything about it at this point. And they've tried and they've fought and they just keep getting silenced. And again, we saw these protests happen. I think probably the largest in the past 40 years protest was this most recent. But again, it seems that it's gone silent and nothing has really changed. I think the biggest problem is that no one is really stepping up as the next leader. The people can only push so far, but if we don't have someone to come take over or someone to come be the next generation of leadership, we can't have a country with no leadership, right? So the people have done what they can, but unfortunately, the stars weren't lined up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's a powerful movement, woman life freedom. I appreciate you sharing that, and you've done a lot to try and amplify the voice, but it's a battle that is going to be very difficult to be won alone if it's just the people versus the theocratic dictatorship. So I liked how you were on Joyanne Reed's show. First off, it's amazing. Like, people don't know, I feel like, in the West, how much of the educated Iranian population is led by women, and how the majority of students are women. The majority of them are in STEM, but they just don't have any opportunities. So it's like you said, it's very sad. It's a huge missed opportunity because the whole world is missing out on great technological, scientific, mathematic innovation. Already a lot has been done, like you mentioned, an Iranian woman winning the Nobel Peace Prize, and a different Iranian woman getting the highest medal for mathematics. But just imagine how much more of an impact they could have if they had equal opportunity. And like you said, it's not even just the woman. Nobody really in Iran has any freedom. So, like you said, if the Iranian people are extremely talented and bright, but if they want any chance to do anything with that intelligence and talent, they have to leave the country.
Yeah, that's so sad. That's so sad.
Yeah, extremely. And in terms of, it's the movement was very loud, and I believe the protests are still going on, but of course it's getting just difficult. Um, what do you think would be the way it can continue? Is it just we need to find like a leader to carry the movement, similar to what there was with the last revolution, or what do you think is missing?
I think that's exactly it. I mean, in my opinion, if you study a little bit what happened 4 years ago at this point, when the last revolution happened, it's got to be a two-step process. One is the people speak up and take down the dictatorship that's currently in front of them. But the second step is they really have to have a strong individual who they can galvanize behind. Otherwise, like I said, you can't rip down a government and have no government, right? That is never going to happen. And unfortunately, I know there was sprinkles of different names and different people here and there, but there was no really one leading force and one person that we could all galvanize behind. We could all, not just people in America, because I know Iranian Americans had someone that they were getting behind, but we're not the ones living there. We have on our heart and our soul, we were there, but it's got to be someone that the people in Iran can really get behind. And unfortunately, at least if that person exists, I haven't seen or heard of them. There could be things happening in the background, which oftentimes there is, but it's that person needs to step up. That's really what I see as the missing piece of this puzzle. We don't have someone.
Yeah, and that, I think you touched on it. That was going to be my question. You mentioned Iranian Americans may have their guy, but that doesn't translate to what's actually happening in Iran. The name that I've heard the most to lead the transition would be Reza Pahlavi and the Gang of Eight. Is that what you were referring to, and what are your thoughts on that as an option?
Yeah, I mean that's what I see as the Iranian American choice. Understandably, because of the nostalgia that his father brings in and generations older who are in America who lived in Iran during that time. But obviously, just to be frank, that didn't work. That's why there was a revolution, right? The revolution was expedited because there was a strong person behind it, but at the end of the day it was the people who allowed it to happen. Like, there was the people who got behind the idea wasn't delivered in the way it was promised, but whatever that was, we shouldn't go back to that either, because it didn't work. And we can't go to someone just because of nostalgia of who their father was. In my opinion, he, great guy, stands for a lot. He's been very active. He's done a lot. But I don't see, personal opinion, I don't see a prerequisite for being able to run a country as what your last name is or who your parents were. Like, I don't believe in monarchies. You don't just get handed that because you were born into it. It's something you have to earn, right? It's something that you really have to have studied politics, have been in that space, know what it is. Not, we don't want to turn it into a Nepo situation.
Yeah.
So that's my opinion on it. And again, I go back to, this has got to be, it's not, I know we are speaking up, we have the voice to speak for them, but we don't live there. We haven't lived there. And even the Iranian Americans who lived a majority of their life there, most of them have been in America now for 20, 30, 40 years. So we can't sit here and make decisions for a country that we haven't had to suffer like they have, right? It's got to be someone who comes within or has been involved in or near or in and out or something in Iran for these amount of years, so they really know firsthand what's happening, and something that the people can relate to also. Like, how are the people going to relate to someone who has lived in America his whole life, raised his children here, raised his it's not. I know for us it looks like the right answer, but if I lived in Iran, I wouldn't think that was the right answer.
Yeah, that's fair. And just so listeners who don't know, Reza Pahlavi is the oldest son of Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, who was the Shah of Iran that was overthrown in 1979 and replaced with the current Islamic Republic. So I think what you're saying is, Reza Pahlavi represents more of the past, and would be kind of going back to uh, a symbolic monarchy that was overthrown ultimately, and the true leader would be probably more suitable to have come up inside of Iran today and representing something more of the future rather than nostalgia.
Absolutely, well said. And not to say that Pahlavi couldn't partner or be part of the committee. There is definitely something that he brings to the table, but again, I don't think he's the strongest candidate. Hence, why not much has happened, right? He definitely completes a piece of the whole, but he, in my opinion, can't take on the whole that is needed.
Yeah, I think that's a fair thing to say, because clearly, like you said, the movement hasn't gone to where many had hoped with so far in this time. My last question on this topic, I just wanted to get a little insight on this. So your uncle Abu Hassan Banisadr was the first president of Iran after the Shah was overthrown. So he was, I saw him named commander in chief by Khomeini, Ayatollah of Iran, but then he was quickly impeached and exiled. Um, what kind of insight could you add into exactly what happened there with your family when the government was transitioning, and then how you all came over to the United States? If you just tell that story
Yeah.
briefly.
Yeah, so I'm just on the cusp end of that. I was born 3 years after his exile. So I wasn't alive when it was happening. I certainly it was all stories that came down through the grapevines. Um, we left Iran in 1992. So a couple of years after his exile. from what I, my takeaways, maybe the first couple of years, my parents had to lay low, but it was no immediate threat. Like he didn't seem to be any sort of immediate threat. So there was no need for us to be as cautious as we should have been otherwise. It's my understanding. Again, I was, not alive at that point. Um, and I've heard a few different stories of sort of what happened there. It's unfortunate because if you actually followed he was a highly intellectual individual, like almost I think a little too intellectual for being able to appeal and to the mass public, right? Um, and he came in with good intentions, right? Everything that I have been able to take away from the story and form my own opinions on it is that, when they first ran, and this is something that everyone will agree with, when they first ran for office and he was elected by the people, they had a platform with a certain set of promises. That's what the people voted for. No one expected that what happened was going to happen, right? So he was just as bamboozled by everyone else in terms of they had a certain set of ideals and how they were going to take it on, and he was supposed to be what was the prime minister, and Khomeini was supposed to be what was, let's say, the pope, the religious ruler. There was supposed to be separation of church and state in the way that it was structured, in the way that they ran. He was voted for as a prime minister. You don't vote for a pope, right? But you understand that they were a package deal. And what happened when they got into power is everything got uprooted and changed. And Khomeini said, no, I'm actually the ruler. I'm the one who sets the rules. We have to enforce religion. And Banisadr didn't agree with this. He tried initially to sort of, win from the inside, meaning you got to partner with your enemies. Like the best way to change is from the inside. And he tried to reason and get him to change or get on board, and that wasn't happening. And that's when it came to the point of, well, we're going to kill you or you got to get out of here. And they did try a few assassinations on him. They tried to assassinate Banisadr. I think he survived one or two helicopter bombings. But ultimately he had to get out of there because the choice was stay and agree to what was happening in the country, that although he initially was part of the change, he didn't agree with where that shifted to, or secondly, get out, or thirdly, get killed, right? So it's unfortunate. And he tried to stay vocal. He went to Paris and he tried to stay vocal. He had a social media. And he always encouraged the youth that they have power and they should take advantage of their power and what they can do for the country. But again, it's really hard from an outside to try to help anyone in something that you're not there to be part of it and understand it from a firsthand basis anymore. So yeah, it's an interesting story to say the least,
Very.
with a lot of different perspectives on it.
Yeah, very interesting story. Fascinating. I appreciate you sharing it because for someone like me and my generation, being born after everything went down, it's just so confusing when you look at the current Iranian government. You're like, why would the people choose this? Why do they have a revolution to bring this kind of government in? And why would anyone be working with this government? But like you're explaining, they were bamboozled. They were sold one thing that was very different than was actually laid out.
Yep. Yeah, nobody would have chosen this. And it's not a religious thing. Even the religious individuals would not have chosen this life, right? It's the government very much uses religion as sort of a cloak
Yeah,
to
they
cover
weaponize
what
it.
intentions is, right? Yeah. So it's not religion, it's greed, it's power, it's a dictatorship packaged in religion.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, very fortunate though that he was able to get out of Iran before being assassinated and live out a very long and fruitful life in Paris. So that was at least good for your family that happened.
Yeah. I mean, it's unfortunate of what happened to the people, but I guess one life was saved.
Yeah, true. Well, we'll switch gears again, go to a more lighter note now. But thank you for sharing all that. That's really good insight, and I think important to get this message across to our audience. It's something that I think has a very big impact on the global stage. But I
Mhm.
did want to ask you about your, I guess, more of your long-term business goals, because you mentioned you initially joined, this company thinking to be like a 12-month thing, but now it's been, multiple years later. What I've learned, even for myself personally, is the 5-year plan is like always constantly changing. It's very fluid. I think I'm going to have one career path. And then through my experiences, it's like, no, I kind of like this more. I want to explore this more. I need to get more experience here. I want to learn this new skill. And then I alter it a lot. So I'm curious, where do you see yourself now? What does that plan look like for you? What's the ultimate goal for Bahareh?
Yeah, I mean, the ultimate goal is to be able to entirely focus on my own business, right? And this is a struggle that I think a lot of entrepreneurs face, which is at what point do you sort of cut the umbilical cord when you have that comfortable paycheck, when you have that life that you're sort of now chained to in terms of having a certain amount of known monthly income coming in? At what point do you leap and say, well, I'm going to take the risk and fully go into my own business? And the older you get and the more comfortable you get, the harder that decision becomes. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs who haven't entirely followed entrepreneurship track, who've gone into the working world and then dabbled in both, probably face that. Um, Famously, there's the story of Bezos. So he had a nice corporate job and he with a nice salary, and there he was told he's crazy to go leave this very lucrative career for something that had zero visibility of success at that point. Um, and so I need to find that inception point of where do I jump and where do I make it take the risk of walking away from one and fully dedicating myself to the other. Is it at the point of raising some outside investment? Is it at the point of being able to have enough capital to do it on my own? Those are really just some life decisions I have to sit with and think of. But my 24-month goal is to make that full shift from my career, traditional career, into entirely focusing myself into the business.
Yeah, that's going to be exciting, and you've already, have accomplished a lot. And I'm curious, so far, what have you learned with starting your own business? Has anything surprised you in the months since you've launched?
Yeah. Yeah, it's so interesting because sometimes you get into the point of analysis paralysis. You sit here and you overthink and you think this is going to happen or this product is going to sell better than that one, so we should buy more of this inventory. And Babson always taught us to take action, just take the leap. As lean as you can make it happen first, because you'd be surprised how many things aren't what you think they're going to be. So, for example, when I was launching with the two products, I was sure that one product was going to exponentially be better than the other one. Like there wasn't even a doubt in my mind. And I had done small friends and family sort of focus groups and had them try both products. But again, friends and family they have biases when you work with them, believe it or not. So it was just clear as day. Like you couldn't convince me otherwise that this product was going to be the hero product and not the other one. So even when it came to inventory decisions and marketing and sort of focus on which one do we want to push more, it was going to be the one that obviously was going to be the hero product. Within 4 weeks of launching, everyone flocked to the other product. The other product was what by about 75% more sales from this other product than the product that I originally thought. So again, that took me back to if I would have just done the launch 5 months ago, when I was going through all this internal like thought and analyzing of why this would be better, I would have had my answer and perhaps been able to pivot on some decisions. But the learning experience. Now I know the next product, instead of prior to inventory, we do a soft launch, we do a pre-order, so that we understand what the consumers actually want, not what we think they're going to want.
That's so fascinating. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Like I've experienced this myself. Analysis paralysis, very real, and action always trumps overthinking. And all of us overthink, but just taking action will get you the answers that you're looking for. That's so funny. Like you were super certain that one product was going to be the hero product, and then literally complete opposite. Great story.
Not even by like an incremental amount, by a significant amount.
Yeah, almost double the sales, 75%.
Yeah.
Yeah, so great message. Action, always take action over trumps overthinking. But I don't want to take up too much more of your time on a Sunday, so I really appreciate this. Any last words? Anything you want to, shout out? Any links you want us to put up on the screen for our audience? What would you like to leave us with?
Well, you can go to the site and check out the products, and if they're right for you, love for you to buy them. BeBahar.com. Oh, and I'd like to actually make a point of why I named it that, because I don't think a lot of people would. It's not an ego thing with my name. It's if you don't know, if you don't speak Farsi, or actually a lot of other languages, the word Bahar means the season, spring, in Turkish and Urdu and Farsi and a number of different languages. And really, spring is the time of year that the world refreshes, renews, and revives itself. So that was just the perfect, what I envision in what our products will do for your apparel and your accessories. Ultimately, as we expand out to more product lines, to care for jewelry, shoes, leather goods, is refreshing, renewing, and repairing, sort of reblooming all your products. So that's why it's Be Bahar, because it's Be Spring. So just so you know, it's not an ego thing with the name. Yeah, check out the site. Write me, let me know what you think. Let me know if there's anything that you think would be needed in this category that you don't currently see in the market. It's bebahar.com, and then you can contact me at chat@bebahar.com. And yeah, just stay knowledgeable, right? Keep your eyes and ears always open of what's going on around you. If it's not always necessarily in what your focus is, but it's keep learning, right? Like keep learning every stage of your life, because you never know how one thing will affect and give you ideas in another part of your life that you wouldn't have expected.
Thank you for tuning in to Meet the Entrepreneur. Be sure to follow Startup Society to stay on top of the most exciting startups in the country striving to keep the American dream alive. Until next time, take care.